Long before the arrival of European explorers, North America was a continent interconnected by a vast and vibrant network of trade. This wasn't a simple exchange of goods, but a lifeline that connected thousands of communities stretching from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico, from the Atlantic coast all the way to the Rocky Mountains and beyond. These ancient trade routes were like veins carrying not only materials but also ideas, art, and innovations across the continent of the Americas. For thousands of years, Native American tribes had been building, sustaining, and expanding this network. Each community contributing unique resources, knowledge, and cultural practices. Imagine seashells from the Atlantic coast finding their way to the heart of the Great Plains, or copper from Lake Superior being crafted into ceremonial objects hundreds of miles away. Through rivers, trails, and carefully maintained paths, goods traveled remarkable distances, revealing a society deeply connected and highly organized. Trade in ancient Native America was about more than just commerce. It was a crucial way of life. It fostered alliances, it spread knowledge, and it strengthened bonds between diverse peoples. Some of these routes were used seasonally, while others bustled with activity year-round. And in major trade hubs like Cahokia in the Midwest, entire communities thrived as centers of commerce. Today, we'll journey through these ancient trade routes, uncovering how Native American societies developed a sophisticated and resilient network that helped shape the history of the continent. Let's take a look at the goods, the trade routes, and the remarkable people who made it all possible. As we dive deeper into the ancient trade network of Native America, let's start with the goods themselves. Precious resources and unique items that moved across vast distances, linking distant communities and shaping local economies. The diversity of traded goods gives us a glimpse into the range of environments and the ingenuity of the people who lived in these environments. One of the most notable traded materials was copper from the Great Lakes region. Known for its durability and distinctive red-orange hue, copper was highly valued for both practical and ceremonial use. Indigenous Americans in what is now known as Wisconsin and Michigan mined copper directly from natural resources and shaped it into tools, weapons, and ornaments. These items found their way as far south as the Gulf of Mexico and as far west as the Rocky Mountains. Copper, with its unique properties, symbolized strength and resilience, and it was often included in spiritual ceremonies and sacred objects. Quick disclaimer for this video, I do mispronounce Mica for Mica multiple times in this video. So if you hear me say Mica, it's really supposed to be Mica. From the Appalachian Mountains came mica and various types of high-quality stones which were valued for their beauty and their practical use. Mica sheets in particular had a brilliant reflective quality that made them popular in rituals and ceremonies. Crafted into intricate shapes, mica ornaments traveled widely, reaching communities across the continent. Stones like flint, chert, and quartz from the Appalachians were transported hundreds of miles, becoming essential materials for tools, weapons, and art. Moving further west, obsidian, volcanic glass, prized for its sharpness, came from sources in the Rocky Mountains and the volcanic areas of the West. This glossy, jet-blacked material was ideal for crafting precise cutting tools and weapons, and was often traded eastward. Obsidian artifacts have been found far from their origins, showing the extent of this trade network. Each piece's unique mineral composition can often be traced back to specific volcanic sources, giving us clues about the trade routes used by these ancient Americans. And from the coastal areas of the Atlantic and the Gulf of Mexico came seashells, which were used for a variety of purposes. Shells were crafted into beads, jewelry, and even a form of currency. Wampum belts made from shells became symbolic in diplomatic meetings, carrying messages and serving as tokens of alliance. If you'd like to learn a little bit more about wampum belts, we have a short video here on the channel that I'll leave in the description and the comments for you to learn more about them. In many cases, these shells would travel hundreds of miles to inland regions, treasured as both decorative items and important cultural symbols. Each of these goods does tell a story not just of trade, but of ingenuity, resourcefulness, and adaptability. These materials were not merely commodities, they held deep cultural and spiritual significance. Through trade, people from different lands shared a piece of their environment, their way of life, and their beliefs. These items and the journeys they took helped connect communities across vast distances, creating a sense of shared identity and mutual respect among the many nations of ancient North America. Now that we've explored the incredible range of goods traded across ancient North America, let's look at how these materials traveled such remarkable distances. Native American trade networks relied on a combination of waterways, trails, and overland paths that formed the arteries of this vast exchange system. The continent's rivers played a central role in this trade route. Major waterways like the Mississippi, the Missouri, and the Ohio rivers acted as sort of ancient highways, allowing for easy transport of goods by canoe. These rivers connected communities from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico and from the Atlantic coast to the Western Plains. Goods could travel long distances quickly, making waterways some of the most efficient routes available. Canoes carved from large logs were skillfully constructed to navigate both gentle rivers and rougher waters, carrying traders and their cargo for hundreds of miles. We also have another video talking about birch bark canoes here on the channel. I will also leave that video in the description and the comments if you'd like to learn more about those. The trade network didn't end where the water did, however, and overland paths or portage trails connected different river systems, creating a sort of web of routes that spanned regions. When a river was impassable or didn't connect to another waterway, ancient traders would carry their canoes and goods across land to reach the next section that they could navigate properly. This method, called portaging, was essential in connecting the Great Lakes to other major rivers that helped create seamless routes across the continent. Portage trails also linked inland communities that didn't have direct river access, extending the reach of trade even further. Dugout canoes, often crafted from a single log and hollowed by controlled fire, were the primary vessels for water travel. However, on land, trade was also relied on for an extensive network of footpaths, many of which were well-worn and carefully maintained over many generations, and some of these you can still see to this day. Travelers on these paths carried goods on their backs or used pack animals, especially in the Southwest where domesticated dogs could pull loads for short distances. While foot travel was slower than water routes, it did allow traders to reach remote areas easier, and it connected them even to the most isolated communities of the broader network. Navigating diverse landscapes from forested woodlands to open plains and rugged deserts required skill and local knowledge. Traders adapted to the specific changes and challenges of each region, relying on both natural landmarks and cultural wayfinding techniques to stay orientated. These journeys could be treacherous, yet they were essential to maintaining the lifeblood of trade and the lifeblood of society. Many of these ancient trails would later serve as the foundation for colonial trade routes, demonstrating just how well organized and established Native American paths and trade routes already were. These trade routes were not simply lines on a map. They were lifelines that linked different cultures and communities across North America. Through waterways, overland trails, and shared knowledge, Native American traders overcame environmental obstacles and forged connections that helped create a network of exchange and cooperation. In doing so, they laid the groundwork for a continent-wide network that thrived for centuries, shaping the social and economic landscape of ancient North America. Ancient trade networks across North America were about so much more than just the goods. Beyond copper, beyond shells, and beyond obsidian, these trade routes carried something just as valuable: culture. Trade wasn't merely transactional, it was relational. As traders moved between regions, they brought stories, they brought rituals, they brought art, and they brought ideas, creating bridges between diverse communities, but similar communities, and shaping the cultural landscape of ancient North America. With each journey, traders didn't just exchange goods, they did share knowledge, and they did share spiritual beliefs. For example, a community that traded copper from the Great Lakes might have learned ceremonial practices from a community that traded shells from the Gulf Coast. Over time, these exchanges influenced rituals, influenced artistic expressions, and even influenced world views. Spiritual practices often traveled alongside materials, with objects like carved mica and shell beads carrying deep symbolic meanings tied to life, nature, and the cosmos. Art was another major element carried along these trade routes. Different regions developed unique artistic styles that often traveled with traded objects. An obsidian blade crafted in the Rockies, for instance, might feature engravings inspired by designs from the plains. Pottery styles from the southwest, with intricate patterns and colors became known far beyond the region. These artistic influences gave rise to regional styles that were shared, adapted, and blended, creating a tapestry of cultural expression across the continent. Trade also brought about alliances. Trading was often accompanied by ceremonies, feasts, and gift exchanges that solidified relationships between different tribes. These interactions weren't just about commerce, they were about diplomatic gatherings that helped maintain peace and mutual respect. For instance, wampum belts, which were made from shell beads and carefully woven with symbolic patterns, became an important tool for communication and treaty making. In this way, trade networks helped form a continent-wide network of allies and diplomatic partners, creating a form of political unity and shared understanding. With trade came the need for shared language and shared communication. Many indigenous groups developed trade languages or used different hand signals to bridge language gaps, making communication easier among the groups. This mutual understanding allowed communities to navigate complex trade deals and build lasting relationships. In fact, these trade languages and sign systems continued to be used well into the colonial era and long after European settlers arrived. By moving beyond mere transactions, Native American trade networks became a powerful means of cultural connection and mutual respect. Through shared ideas, artistic influences, and diplomacy, trade routes transformed into paths of understanding and unity across vast regions. This exchange of knowledge, this exchange of beliefs, and this exchange of customs didn't just connect communities, it built a sense of identity and belonging that shaped life across ancient North America. Though centuries have passed since these ancient trade routes flourished, the legacy of North America's indigenous trade networks lives on. These pathways and the relationships they created shaped the cultural and physical landscape of the continent in ways that continue to resonate with us today. Many of the trails and rivers used by Native American traders became the foundation for routes still in use today. Early European explorers and settlers and fur traders often relied on indigenous guides and adopted established native paths to navigate the continent. Over time, these trade routes evolved into major roads, railways, and some even turned into highways, connecting North America in much the same way that ancient traders once did. In many areas, our modern transportation networks follows in the footsteps of these ancient pathways, and it's a testament to the deep understanding that indigenous people had of their land. The cultural exchanges that took place along these trade routes did leave a lasting impact on indigenous societies, and many of the spiritual practices, ceremonial items, and artistic styles that originated in one region spread across the continent, becoming deeply rooted in the cultural identity of various different tribes. Even today, artifacts found far from their origins remind us of the extensive connections that once existed across North America. Indigenous communities continue to honor these traditions, keeping alive the cultural influences and shared histories fostered through trade. Trade was also not only about the resources and cultural benefit, it was also a tool for resilience and survival. For thousands of years, communities adapted to changing climates, shifting ecosystems, and new challenges by expanding trade networks. This resilience helped them survive and thrive in diverse environments, and it built a society that was adaptable to change. Even today, indigenous communities draw on this legacy of resourcefulness and interconnectedness as they face modern challenges and work to reclaim and celebrate their cultural heritage. In recent years, there's been a resurgence in the appreciation and revitalization of indigenous trade practices. Many Native American communities are reconnecting with traditional commerce, creating networks for the exchange of native crafts, foods, and medicines. Events such as intertribal markets and cultural festivals echo the purpose of ancient trade hubs, bringing people together to celebrate and strengthen cultural bonds. By honoring these ancient practices, indigenous communities continue to sustain a legacy of trade, respect, and collaboration. Ancient Native American trade networks were more than just paths for the exchange of goods. They were lifelines of culture, connection, and community, forming the backbone of a resilient society that thrived across North America for thousands of years. The legacy of these trade routes is still woven into the landscape, visible in our modern roads, our shared cultural practices, and the enduring spirit of indigenous resilience. As we remember these networks today, we honor the profound impact that they had on the history of North America and the ways they continue to inspire unity and strength across communities.